Gary Hager, instant autodidact, president of and founder of Integrated Wealth Management, and George Wells, Legacy of America's out in Detroit. Both join us to talk a little bit about the ghosts of Fed present versus the ghosts of the Fed past. And Alan Greenspan, I brought this up earlier this hour with you, has had a little, I don't know what to call it, a little back and forth with this hedge fund manager out west who's getting a lot of attention. His name is Michael Burry, and if you read Michael Lewis's book, I don't do book recommendations, but you should read Michael Lewis's book just because it reads like a movie like everything else the guy writes. Anyway, The Big Short, this guy's one of the main characters in it. He bet against the housing market. He made tons of money on it. He's an interesting guy for other reasons as well. He's Asperger's syndrome and only sees out of one eye, all this type of stuff, and works out of his own office in the dark.
Actually, his nickname is Dr. Evil,
and all
but
this
we won't go there.
Right. It's just one of these, you could see the movie being made, one of these characters.
Absolutely.
Anyway, he called it. He writes an op-ed in the Times over the weekend. Let's bring up a quote from that op-ed. And Greenspan's been going back and forth with him. Here's Burry. As a nation, we cannot afford to live with Mr. Greenspan's way of thinking. The truth is, he should have seen what was coming and offered a sober, apolitical warning. Everybody would have listened. When he talked about the economy, the world hung on every single word. Should Greenspan have known and said something?
Yes, and he did know, and he didn't.
He did
say
know.
something.
You think he knew?
I absolutely feel he knew. Especially, you know, you look at the two sides of Greenspan. One of the things that will always be remembered for is the irrational exuberance commentary coming to the end of the tech bubble. And then from somebody that was, quote, careful about this, about watching and being a little more clairvoyant and seeing clear signals when profit-to-sale ratios were off the roof on stocks.
Right.
To be able to come into this particular disaster, a smart individual, and start recommending that people buy these crazy designed mortgages that had principal adjustments like a credit card that would just add to the value. That is so unlike him. To be able to do that person.
Gary, he's digging here. You said before the break you're a conspiracy theorist, so this would fit with the mold you're playing.
Yeah. Because remember, even though you had the alternate players, I'll liken it to a craps table. On a craps table, most people are betting with the dice.
Right.
But you got those two little guys in the corner that nobody likes. That is always betting against the table. But yet, when the smoke clears at the end of the night, they're the guys walking away with all the money.
What do you think, George? I mean, is Gary onto something, or is it, as Greenspan claims it is, something he did not see coming? He admits to not seeing it coming. In fact, when he was asked by Jake Tapper on ABC this weekend about how he saw it, this financial crisis, he said there are three types of people. Those who didn't see it coming, I'm in that camp, meaning Greenspan. And then there are people who got it right who fall into two different camps. Some were lucky, and others, which he, for some reason, threw in the phrase, most of whom were my friends, got it right for the right reasons. Then he said, you know, this guy Burry, he doesn't know whether he got lucky or he had it right. Did Greenspan know about this and didn't say anything, or he just didn't see it coming and should have? What's your take?
Well, I'll take the opposite side of Gary. I'm happy to say I believe that Mr. Greenspan was trying to do what was right for us. I'm more interested. I know we have to have these hearings. We have to go forward and put blame where blame belongs. But I'm more interested in going forward and what we can glean from all these years of service that Mr. Greenspan had, how we're able to implement what he's learned and not make the same mistakes.
But so you're not pointing fingers at the guy. But, I mean, but it is fair to ask questions, isn't it? I mean, this is an 18-year run as the Federal Reserve Chairman and all the time building up to the crisis here. It's fair to ask some of these questions going back. I mean, there's been inquiry commissions on every major event in American history. I mean, I know we all want to move forward, but wouldn't you have some questions for the guy?
It's extremely important to be asking questions. It's extremely important to find out what went wrong. But the purpose here is to be able to move forward. I do not want to remove blame from anyone, but I want to look at how we're going to be able to use this to move forward, to not make the same mistakes again.
Right.
Because we're always going to be able to have a scapegoat, but what did you learn from it?
Right,
how are you able to move forward?
Fair enough. So you're saying, all right, so the questioning should be along the lines of, what did you learn, Mr. Greenspan? How can we prevent something else like this from happening in the future? All right, good points there, George and Gary. Thanks to both of you guys. We're going to move on now to the China story.
To talk more about this, Gary Hager, the president and founder of Integrated Wealth Management, as well as George Wells of Legacy of America, joining us from Detroit. So, Gary, the saga continues, I guess. What do you make of it?
I'm not surprised. I think 7 points, or probably 300 basis points over what they were looking for, is really how they priced the risk on this particular issue. I think Greece is being walled off, and I think they are going to need to go out beyond the IMF to the Eurozone and say, help, please help.
And will they get that help?
They will.
In what form?
I think that overall, Germany has been kind of reticent to come in, but I think ultimately they're going to come in as a white knight. Exactly what they're going to exact from that, I don't know. But I just don't see them allowing them to twist in the wind much longer. So again, it's all about squeezing these last bips out, these last pieces from God knows what sort of exchange that they have with the Eurozone to gain leverage. So I can't say. I don't know if anybody really can say what they're going to ultimately result with it, but I don't believe they're just going to step away from Greece when all is said and done.
You know, interesting this morning, George, Germany's finance minister, a spokesman for the finance minister, saying we've done everything possible to restore confidence in Greece. There's no change in plan for aid to Greece in last resort. He goes on to say that there's confidence in the measures agreed for Greece. So again, Germany coming out once more and saying, you go to the IMF or go to other people, but we're not going to change the way we're approaching this issue. Do you think, like Gary, though, that they might come in and eventually be the saviors here, the good guys that are going to help Greece out?
Well, the big question, Jen, is how much is this really going to cost us in the future? You don't want to be sending good money after bad, but everyone has a vested interest. I think it's important really for Greece, instead of just asking for money, to look at if we do fail, if we don't get the money, what does that really mean? And start talking about what's really at stake here, because it's so involved with all the other countries, laying out the bottom line of what's really at risk if you don't help us.
All right, George and Gary, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're going to move on here. Washington is